Is this an A12 killer? Let's find out. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a real-world preview of the Sony a7R6. Now, this is a pre-production camera that we've been using for a few weeks, and I've gotten to run it through its paces pretty extensively. I shot everything from kids playing at a playground to an artist painting a mural. I took it to the zoo because it's a good wildlife camera. Tested it out at a Phillies game to see how the autofocus and the rolling shutter looked. Did some low light shooting at a Philadelphia Union soccer match, and finally finished with some flag football. So that is a lot of different situations to use this camera in. I do want to let you know that I shot RAW plus JPEG, so all the images that you're seeing in this video were edited from the highest resolution JPEG files. Because at the time of recording this, you could not open the RAW files in Adobe Lightroom. And if you're wondering how will this camera be for video recording, we're actually recording with it right now, and we'll tell you how we're doing that when we get to the video section. But now let's take a look around the outside of the body. So the design follows the latest A7 V model. It has the same 4-axis vari-angle touchscreen, and it still has a 9.44 million dot EVF, but now has an ultra bright 10-bit HLG panel, which is 3 times brighter than that of the A7R V. Now, Sony always says it's like looking through a window. It's good. I don't think it's the best since sliced bread, and one of the things, and this is right to Sony, that could help it look better is change up the font of the numbers at the bottom. There's still jagged little edges like Alanis Morissette. If you would just smooth those out, it would make everything else seem like it's great. Look, it's a great viewfinder. That's just one of the things I would like to see changed. Now, if you've ever been in a low light situation and you wanted to see the buttons, you would have to pull out your phone and try to light up the back of the camera. Well, this is the first Sony with back button illumination, and there are 3 different brightness settings that you can use. They nailed this. This is a perfect implementation of back button illumination. There's a button on top of the camera, you press it, and those lights light up perfect. They did it extremely well. I can't believe this is the first time they've ever done that. Now, when changing lenses in low light situations, or in any situations for that matter, sometimes it's hard to line up the dot of the lens with where it's supposed to line up on the camera, but Sony has added a raised lens mount index, which has a little tactile feel. I wish it had a little bit more of a tactile feel, but where I found it come in handy is I could look down the side of the camera and more easily see exactly where I need to line up the lens. It's something you don't really think about in everyday use, but now that that index is there, it is really helpful. In terms of ports, it has all of the same ones that you're used to, but now it has 2 USB-C, with one of them being a screw lock. So you can lock in the USB-C. You could use one for charging while you're using one to go out or something else. So that is always nice to have. Sony has decided to do something that will probably piss off people who are upgrading from older cameras, but people that are just getting into the Sony system now with this camera won't be upset. They have finally changed away from the Z battery. They've been using that Z battery for multiple generations of cameras, and they finally have made a change with the SA battery, which I'm assuming stands for Sony Alpha. And it is similar in size to the Z battery, but it is a different shape. So why you might be upset is if you have a lot of Z batteries, you are not going to be able to they're not reverse compatible. You can't throw it into this camera, and you can't throw the new battery into the older cameras. Now, this battery has a 17% higher capacity at 2670 milliamp hours. And for the first time, they can actually tell you about the battery health inside of the camera. Yippee. I mean, I guess other manufacturers have already done this, and you know that your battery is bad when it's not really holding a charge. So now it tells you inside of the camera. Speaking of charging, you do get a dual charger. Now, if you just bought the old dual charger or the new dual charger that was the latest dual charger, you might be a little upset, especially if you're going to upgrade to this, but it's good that they have the Z dual charger, but it's also nice that this camera is coming with a dual charger and not a single charger. It also offers fast charging, which is 45% faster than the older charger. You will get 85 minutes to a full charge versus 155 minutes with the older batteries. And these batteries, they're $120, which is $32 more than what the Z battery sells for. It is a better battery. I didn't have any battery issues. I personally used it with a battery grip, and the battery grips are not reverse compatible. It is a new grip, and it is still $460. That is an expensive grip, but you kind of need it if you're a professional. There is a new asterisk mode dial setting which replaces the M3 mode. They call it the custom shoot modes, which allows you to add up to 10 shooting presets in each. You've got stills, movies, slow and quick, and the coolest thing is you can label and name each one of those. So like when I go out to shoot video, Steven might set it to 24, 60, and 120 so that I could quickly go from one mode to the next. But imagine if you shoot in one stadium. You're like, okay, I always want to switch with these settings in this stadium. Another stadium, another thing, indoors, outdoors. You can name it and you can export them and save them to switch from one camera to the next, as long as it's the same camera. Let me jump in here real quick and let you know that this video is brought to you by B&H and their PayBoo credit card, where you pay the tax and B&H pays you back instantly. Now there's two ways you can save. One, where you pay the tax and B&H pays you back instantly. To check your eligibility for Save the Tax benefits, visit bhphoto.com/payboo. Or two, you can get 6 to 12 months special financing on minimum purchases of $199 for 6 months or $599 for 12 months. Now, I personally choose to save the tax, but both options are great options to have. To learn more, visit bhphoto.com/payboo. Now, I save tax on everything I order when I use my PayBoo credit card from B&H, from cameras to lenses and computers, to hard drives, TVs, and even film for my 4x5 camera. Whether you spend $10 or $10,000, those savings add up.
Low on cash, but still need to get your boo? Don't worry.
For more information and to apply for your PayBoo card, head on over to the link on the screen or down below in the description. And remember to always charge responsibly. Now let's get to what really matters, the inside of the body. Now, Sony says this is a full system upgrade inside. A new power system, a new sensor, and a new processor. It is a fully stacked 66.8 megapixel BSI sensor. This is the highest resolution, full frame, fully stacked sensor ever, according to Sony. And if they're saying it, their lawyers have told them that it's true, at least at the time that they told us. Let me say this again. It is a 67 megapixel fully stacked sensor. I didn't think it would be a fully stacked sensor. I thought it would possibly be a partially stacked sensor, but they did go all in and gave you a fully stacked 67 megapixel sensor, which leads some people to wonder, is it an A1 killer? And we'll get to that in just a second. Sony wouldn't give us the exact readout speeds, but they did tell us that it's 5.6 times faster than that of the A7R5. And the A7R5 was around 99 milliseconds. And when you use all your math skills and then ChatGPT to check it, you find out that it's roughly 17.5 milliseconds in a readout speed for the A7R6. To put that into perspective, Canon's original R5, which was 45 megapixels, which wasn't stacked, had roughly the same readout speed. And that's like 6 years old at this point. That's still fast, but it's not A1 too fast, which is roughly 4 milliseconds. Remember, the A1 series, the A1 and the A1 II, that is optimized for speed at high resolutions because it's 50 megapixels. This, the A7R6, is 67 megapixels. It's optimized for resolution, but you'll see that it's still usable with the electronic shutter. Now, I wanted to test this out, run 4 different cameras through its paces from Sony, just to give you an understanding of what it looks like when you are shooting a fast-moving baseball and a swing when a batter is at the plate. We've got the A7R4 because I don't have an A7R5, but it's the same readout speed, and you can see how absolutely atrocious it is when you see the bat is shrunk down and the ball at the edge is just totally misshapen, and what is going on with that bicep. So that is an issue. Now, we knew that the A7R4 and the A7R5 were basically useless for moving subjects with the electronic shutter, but how did the A7R6 fare with its 17.5 millisecond readout speed? Well, it's pretty Bowie. You can see it in fast-moving actions. It looks like the bat is about to hug the ball, and it is warped. Now, the A12, on the other hand, you don't notice an issue at all. It looks like it froze it perfectly fine. The bat looks straight, the ball looks perfect, and to use a control, we did the A93, which takes a full readout because it's a global shutter, and there are no issues whatsoever there. And that's why this is not an A12 killer, because the A12 is 4.5 times faster for readout speeds where pros absolutely demand and need no jelloing and no rolling shutter. The A7R5 topped out at 7 frames per second with the electronic shutter, and the A7R6, thanks to the stacked sensor, can bang out 30 frames per second in 14-bit RAW. That is a big upgrade. Another thing I noticed with the A7R6 is when you are panning, and I wasn't even panning that fast with the new 100 to 400 at flag football, you can notice the background where poles are not perfectly straight. Now, I pick that out. The majority of people are never going to notice that. And for other types of sports where balls aren't involved in super fast things, it is highly usable still at 30 frames per second with the electronic shutter. But don't forget, you still do have a mechanical shutter for those situations where you just want to freeze the action, and you can do that with the A7R6 as well, which I do have examples of a guy swinging. It's perfect, and the ball is frozen there because you're using a mechanical shutter. Just like all of the other new Sonys at this point in the full frame world, you do have pre-capture, which you can go down to 1 full second, and you can activate it and deactivate it with 1 click, which is something that my Canon R5 II and R1 currently can't do. We're still waiting for a firmware upgrade, but Canon has put that in to the R6 Mark III, so it's probably coming, but Sony implements it right off the rip. Now, where this comes in handy was in flag football recently, where I was tracking the quarterback, and then I see a guy putting his arm up in the end zone, and I'm like, all right, I got pre-capture on. I'm gonna wait till he goes up. As soon as he goes up to catch the ball, I hit the shutter, and then I can go back and pick out the images where it's right in there touching his fingers. So that's where pre-capture comes in handy. But you also have to remember, you don't always want to have it on because you start chewing up a ton of files and a ton of storage space. Sony is big on having something called speed boost. Now, you might think when you hear speed boost that that's going to be able to boost you beyond 30 frames per second, but it's not. Now, where I personally use it is I set the camera to high mode, which is 20 frames per second. Or even if I was in low mode, I could then map out any button. In my case, the AF on button, I hit that and it instantly goes into speed boost mode up to 30 frames per second. So when I know fast action is about to happen or something that I really want to capture, I bang on 30 frames per second and pre-capture with presses of buttons, and I'm good to go. Both of these features come in handy when you're shooting sports or you're shooting wildlife, because the ability to just hit a button or two and have both of them turned on and off is, one, going to help you capture moments you might have otherwise missed, and two, save on burning extra data. I did discover something super odd and peculiar with the A7R6. Why is my max shutter speed in the electronic shutter 1/8,000th of a second when the a7 IV can do 1/16,000th of a second? I don't know why they limited it here. And if you're using 1.2 lenses outside, you might not be able to go and get the picture without upping your aperture. So it makes no sense that it is stuck at 1/8,000th of a second for electronic and mechanical. Maybe they wanted to limit what this could do because the A1 II does 1/32,000th of a second. When you think of 67 megapixels, you think big files, lots of data. RAW files, which are lossless compressed RAW files here, you can't even shoot uncompressed anymore in this camera, are roughly 100 megabytes each on average. Yeah, 30 frames per second, 100 megabytes on average. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot. JPEGs are averaging 50 megabytes a JPEG file. Now, for all of you people out there who are like, I don't shoot RAW because the files are too big, well, you get this camera, your JPEG files are gonna be big. And yes, you could dumb it down, and then I would call you a dumbass for spending all the money to get this camera and dumbing down your files. That would be stupid. Now, because the files are so large, you would think you don't get a very long burst before you fill up the buffer, where you're getting roughly 150 RAW files at 30 frames per second before you fill up that buffer and have to wait for it to write to the dual CF Express A cards. Now, those are fast cards and you can put 2 in the camera. I personally prefer CF Express B card slots. I wish Sony would do that, but Sony likes to be different than Canon and Nikon. But the CF Express B cards are almost twice as fast as the CF Express A. As always, it is a reverse compatible slot, so you could put SD cards in there, but I probably wouldn't do that because that is going to slow everything way down. Spend the money, get the CF Express A cards, you'll thank me later. With that being said, I really didn't have an issue outrunning the buffer. Just don't hold down the shutter and do all the major look, the more pre-capture you do, the quicker that buffer is going to fill. You have to remember that. You're gonna get less. But what's cool is Sony has that line on the left-hand side of the screen that shows you how much is left in the buffer. The higher the line, full buffer. The lower the line, you're wasting buffer. In terms of ISO, natively we go from 100 to 32,000, where Sony claims that you will get cleaner high ISO files. I went to 8,000 ISO, and remember, I can't open the RAW files, but the JPEGs looked perfectly usable and perfectly fine to me. And I was zooming in 1:1. Just remember, when you zoom in 1:1, on a 67 megapixel file, you are going to see imperfections. That if you were to print it out the size of a wall, you wouldn't see those imperfections. If you're staring at it like this, you're probably gonna see some imperfections in everything. Let me jump in here real quick because I wanna show you FroPack 4 in action on this photo right here, and it looks absolutely incredible, starting with Blue's Clues, followed by Brooklyn. We've got C41, Copper Tone, DeLorean, High C, Kaleidoscope, Mel Brooks, Saltwater Taffy, Thick, and Wet Hot American Summer. But my all-time favorite from FroPack 1, with one click of a button here, we've got Skittles, and it goes boom. But new and exclusive to FroPack 4, we've got 4 custom adaptive Lightroom presets called Face Enhance, Full Body Skin Enhance, Eye Only Enhance, and Background Blur. So look, if you want to speed up your RAW workflow or give yourself a great starting point, or also edit on the go in Lightroom Mobile, because these presets work on JPEGs and RAW on the go, we created 14 all new custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at fronosphoto.com/FroPack4. While you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters. And if you decide to pick them up right now, they are currently on sale. Or if you want to save even more, you can get the Grand Slam bundle that includes FroPack 1, 2, 3, and 4. And of course, Skittles is included. Now, let's get back to the video. If you're one of those dynamic range junkie people, Sony says you get 16 stops of dynamic range in stills, and that should help in scenes like this one at the baseball stadium where I exposed for the sky and ended up bringing back the stadium. Sony did add some new composite RAW modes into this camera, like HDR, noise reduction, and a 266 megapixel pixel shift option. These are things that I personally never would use. Now, part of the reasons why I would never use this is you need to use Sony's Imaging Edge desktop software. That is a tongue twister. As I mentioned earlier, it comes with a new processor. It borrows the A7V's Bion's XR2 with integrated AI. Now, this is a worthy AF update. It has real-time recognition AF+, which is what Sony calls it, with better overall subject tracking. Now, I will tell you from my experience using the A1s and the A9s is that this has some really good autofocus. It's possibly better than what you find in the A1 II. It's very similar to what I found with the A7V because it has the same processor. I thought that one focused better than a lot of the other Sonys. I mean, if you can't focus with these Sony cameras at this point, it's a you thing. They are all good from top to bottom. They just keep improving and getting better. They're all incredible. So as you could see, the autofocus was very good for tracking and locking on. And there's so many different options from custom modes that you can enlarge or make smaller. You can do whatever you need to do to find the right autofocus for you. A new addition to this camera is something called illumination estimation technology, which is supposed to equal better, more accurate colors and auto white balance for your JPEGs in your preview, but it also will affect your video. Now, I can't tell you that in most situations I noticed that the white balance was better or worse than before. I know that in a tough situation like the artist painting a mural, it's not exactly accurate to the colors, but that's because there's a lot of blues. I just have to tweak it to get those colors back. It's never going to be perfect, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I noticed a major difference. The way it's supposed to work is that the camera is supposed to recognize the subject and the difference between a person or a tree or the clouds and try to make the colors correct. Before we get to the video section and wrapping up this video, from a stills standpoint, this is a fantastic camera. You are just gonna have to decide, do you need 67 megapixels? Are you king cropper? Is that your thing? I'm not a cropper, and I think that that's kind of, if your idea of buying this camera is, well, I just wanna crop to my heart's content, you can do it. I would then tell you to try and get better with your composition and your photography personally, but if you don't wanna spend the money, and you'll hear about this price, maybe the A7V is a better choice at 33 megapixels. They are both great cameras. So from a still standpoint, they did a solid job. Now let me say this about video. This is not a true hybrid where it's great at video and it's great at stills. This is meant to be a stills first camera, but of course they give you video features and we're gonna talk about them right now. You can do 8K up to 30p 10-bit 422 with a 1.2 time crop. We're actually shooting in 8K 24p S-Log3 as we speak, and this is kind of a good test for overheating because we generally film for roughly an hour to get these videos done, and we're having no issues whatsoever with overheating. And we're shooting in that 8K again. Steven just let me know that we're 45 minutes in continuously shooting in 8K and no overheating signs at all. Let's talk about the standard 4K video you get out of this camera. It's full width 4K up to 120, which is oversampled from 5K with a full pixel readout. And just like the A7V, you do need to turn on the angle of view priority to use full frame 120, which turns off high ISO noise reduction. Now, for more detailed video, just like its predecessor, it can shoot Super 35 in 4K up to 60p, which is oversampled from 6.3K. Now, one of the bigger marketing points that Sony made for us in this video section is that you now have a dual gain option in 4K up to 30 frames per second. It extends the dynamic range in shadow areas and gives you more details, but this does come with a few caveats, like the ISO is limited to 200 to 3200 in log, or only 400 if shooting in a standard profile, and it has a much slower readout speed when dual gain is on. In terms of overheating, Sony says you can get up to 120 minutes of record time in roughly 77 degrees temperature, which whatever it is. In here, it's currently, if I had to guess, about 67 degrees, and we're about 50 minutes into recording, and we're seeing no issues whatsoever. Now mind you, that's for 8K or 4K 120. In the regular 4K modes, you're never going to overheat this camera. You have a new 5-axis IBIS unit with 8.5 stops in the center with dynamic active image stabilization. For those who demand better quality audio, this camera is 32-bit float capable, but you do need to use their new XLR adapter, which is called the XLR A4. Let me jump in here real quick and say, do you struggle getting sharp, crisp, clear images in low light situations like these? Well, if you said yes, I have a free guide for you. Just head on over to froknowsphoto.com and look for this orange box, put your name, email address in it, hit send it. I'm gonna send you that guide for free. So how much is this camera? It's $4,500. Now at the time of recording this, the A7R5 sells for $3,300, and that was $3,900 new when it was announced and was released. And when you compare that to Canon's R5 Mark II, it's very similarly priced. At least when it was released, it was $4,400. Now it's on sale for like $3,900, so it's in the same price point. Now personally, I think this high resolution stacked sensor stuff is kind of highly unnecessary. That's not to say that they didn't do a great job with this camera, but when you look at something like Canon's R5 Mark II, which is a stacked sensor at 45 megapixels, that is a much higher readout speed, and it is fully usable across the board when you are doing sports. Now, if you're not shooting sports with this camera, you're doing wildlife, you saw where some of the imperfections might show up, and if you are a massive cropper, then go buy this camera. I'm not happy that you care more about cropping than anything else, especially knowing that you're just looking at it on a phone for the most part and barely making prints, but they did a nice job. This is fast. I didn't expect them to do a 30 frames per second stacked sensor. Autofocus fantastic. It is a really solid offering when it comes to stills, but you have to ask yourself, do I need this? Or would a more hybrid style camera of the A7 IV be a better choice at 33 megapixels? Because that is a fantastic catch-all camera. Weddings, portraits, sports, wildlife, this is going to be great across the board, but I don't see professional sports shooters or people that demand no bowing or warping in any of their photos at all replacing A1s with something like this, unless they want to do super high resolution portraits with the mechanical shutter, but they could also get away with that with the electronic one as well. Just know the caveats before you purchase. At the end of the day, it is not an A12 killer, but it is a solid camera. Thank you very much for watching. Jared, Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.